Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Thorough Capping. It's Dave. What I wanted to do is I wanted to put a video together that started to accumulate some data on the factors that we've been looking at up to this point. And as I mentioned before, the grid is very versatile, and I very well may be adding factors to this grid, and maybe possibly even taking factors away. But anytime I add a factor to it, what I'll make sure is I'll let everybody know through video. And two, if it's a factor or calculation that I haven't gone over that's not found in the tutorial, I will make sure I do a video on that particular calculation as well. That way, anybody who has purchased the tutorial, you'll have access to the grids. You just go on to the slide in the tutorial that says download the grid, and you'll find the new grid with the new factors. But for right now, the factors are going to stay out as they are. What I did was I started to accumulate a little bit of a database, and I'm going to expand on this. And once I have enough of a sample, I'm going to make this a tab in your grid section, or a tab on the bottom of your actual grids. So when you go into the slide where it says download grid here, and you open it up, all you gotta do is make a copy of it, and you'll have your own copy. You can access. You don't even have to make a copy. You'll be able to view the data. Okay, what we're looking at here is the card from the other day, Monmouth 1 through 10. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to get a general idea overall, not looking at how I bet the race and played my tickets, but overall, how did the handicapping do? How did the factors perform? And what I did was, anytime there's a 1, that means in that particular race, the horse that won the race exhibited that particular factor. Okay? Anytime there's a 2, the horse that finished second was tops in that factor. And anytime there's a 3, the horse that finished third was tops in that particular factor. I did not dig into as far as where did they finish, if they were second in that particular factor or third or so on. I mean, I'm doing all this manually. I wish I had a program where I could just hit enter and it would do it for me. But for right now, we're just focusing on first place, second place, and third place. And we're focusing on what factors were they tops in? Did they rank number 1 in? Now, this area over here is my qualitative data. And I have it shaded because it's really skewed somewhat, because not every race has a horse that comes off a turn move. Not every race has a horse that's a class dropper with early speed. Not every race has a horse coming out of a key race, and so forth, okay? Most races, as you can see here, you'll be able to dig some sort of trainer stat percentage-wise, because there are so many different factors you can look for. Now, this could be skewed a little bit too, because I don't have a column for each individual trainer factor, such as coming off a layoff, going from turf to dirt, going from route to sprint, and so on and so forth. Second off the layoff, first off the claim, and so on. I just have one column for anything that was identified based on trainer and where they finished, okay? And as you can see, that trainer column did very well. But again, because it's all of those categories bunched into one, and the lower the better. So we're going to call this let's see, what we'll call the bias index. Okay, I'll title this a bias index. And when I say bias, I'm talking about category bias of each of the categories, or factor bias. Okay, but if you notice here, 3 of the races had a horse that came off a turn move on a turn. The 4th race, the 7th race, and the 8th race. Anytime you see a 5, it means it finished out of the money. Okay? I didn't want to put 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and so on. If it finished 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, it's labeled. If it finished out of the money, it gets a 5. Doesn't matter whether it finished 4th or whether it finished 10th in the race. But the turn move column, based on, again, the small sample data right now, there were three races that had a horse that coming off a move on a turn, and 4th and the 8th, both of them horses were the winners. Now, they did exhibit other factors as well, but it wasn't like they were across the board you know, across the board on top of everything here. Okay, for example, this horse right here, the the horse in the fourth race, he was top turn move. He was my top target. He was top targetability average. He was top V2, and after that, I mean, even in the average column, the pace averages, he was out of the money in there. He wasn't even figuring in there. So, small sample set, but something to maybe keep an eye on. The turn move, as I mentioned before. So I'm going to label that. Now, when we look over here, let's move over to the actual factors that you're going to find in every single race. The target and ability and the average. Actually, I should not have this section shaded because this is okay. From the matrix grid here, the target rating actually performed better than the target ability average. Okay, so from the target ability and average group, you had the target horse performing best. Okay, and then from our pace grids over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade this so we can separate them. I'll shade this shade of pink. Okay, the best performer, and notice we have certain columns with nothing in them, or certain cells with nothing in them. That was under the factor X, and I said the factor X is a sprint factor. And if you've read Tom Brohammer's Modern Pace Handicapping, he explains, he gets into a little bit in depth as to why that's a sprint factor, not necessarily a route factor. But if you see it, this category performed well. I mean, it produced a first place, even though this was an across the board winner. That's right there. That's a single. If you're playing a multi, right there. But we have first, second, third. There was only one race, and actually this was a mile race. So we can get that out of there. And that's going to help the value even more. It's a 2.0. Okay, so be mindful of that factor X when you're handicapping sprint races and you've done your pace figures and your velocity ratings. When you get over to the portion of the grid that deals with the averages, which are these over here, and I'll make them a different shade. Factor X in sprints, very good. Now the sustained pace as well has outperformed that day. Now again, a small sample size, 10 races, but the sustained pace also outperformed the average overall pace as well. So how would you use this data? I mean, that's a question that I'm going to have to figure out the answer to as well. But one recommendation I'd give you is look for combinations. Okay, when you're handicapping and you're finished a card, or not even a whole card, you finished a race, look at the distance of the race and see what factors pair well together. Okay, target horse that's coming off a turn move, maybe that's a play. Despite anywhere else that he finishes is a play. Okay, horse that finishes highest in factor X, it's a sprint race. Maybe he has to pair up somewhere else. You look down here, okay, maybe top late pace with an X factor, and he's a target horse, or so on. But figure out your pairings, and as I get a larger database and more data, I'm going to start putting a section where I'm going to start identifying powerful combinations. Okay, but I don't have a large enough of a sample size here yet on this spreadsheet to really feel like I can do that. Now, how else can you do this? Well, once I have a large enough sample size and I have more races at Monmouth and Saratoga is going to begin, I have some Saratoga samples. You could also take a look and see not only where the positive bias is, but where the negatives are as well. So let's say, for example, I had 100 races here instead of 10 from Monmouth, and the V3 factor wasn't shown very well. Well, you could use that to your advantage as well. because you can know that, you know what, don't favor a horse that is just showing high in the third segment velocity and nowhere else. Okay, that's another way you can look at this as well. But I know you're probably sitting there thinking, well, analyzing it is probably the most important part. Well, that's correct. Analyzing it, when you get data, even when you pay for a software program, you pay $199 for a program that you have to buy data files for each race card, and it's still not going to spit the 4 horses out that you are going to play and you're going to hit every single time. It's going to have categories, and you're going to have to base those categories, one, on how the track is running that day, lately, not so much that day, but lately. 2, is it a grass race? Is it a dirt race? What's the distance? And so on. So even though you have your numbers and your data, the handicapping's not done yet. The hardest part is now disseminating between your rankings. Once you get your information here, and the more you know, the better off you are. So if you could use that table there as it accumulates to aid in your final rankings, then that can only help you even more. Final evaluations. The other thing is I wanted to mention was that I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, that's right. I did not account for anything as far as where did the horses finish when they finished, let's say, second in target rating, or second in the average, or second here or second there. As I said before, that would just be too much to manually input. But if you take a look at this race here at Monmouth, race 9, okay, finished 9-1-12. Okay, we have a 47-40 winner, the 9 horse. If you look at my grid for race 9 at Monmouth, which should be this race here, the 9 indeed factored in once, twice on this grid. Okay, once in the pace category, 4th, and once in the matrix over here, but he never finished on top in any category. But at the same time, you look at this and you say, you know what, this horse may have to be thought about as a play. And that's really, really digging deep as far as how you're using your contenders and how you're using your selections in your plays. But you could probably say that that was a mistake on my part. I should have looked at the odds a little bit better and said, you know what, at least this 9 is probably worth a couple dollars a win, or $2, $3 a win. But you live and learn. You know, you learn from your losses, and maybe down the road I'll be able to pick up a winner based on remembering that. I'm not going to say that's something that's going to happen all the time, but the 8 horse in that race is showing up better in this category than the 9, and the 8 horse finished out of the money. So, I mean, again, it's all how you look at it and how you disseminate. All right, so hopefully you got something out of this video. I'd love to see some comments as far as your thoughts on this. And I realize it's a small sample size. I get that. I understand that. But I just want to let you know as far as where I'm going here with this whole factor bias index, so that it'll aid us along the way in our future wagering. All right, I'll see you next time.